if it was a private entity that was gonna put in a boat, gonna have a rental place, maybe they wanna put in a boat launch, kayak launch there, but
Well, my main thought was just any kind of developed access there. I mean, even when we talked about possibly having the boardwalk around, could the boardwalk terminate at that point, and let people, get up there?
Yep.
Or if we ever had, on Laura, we talked about the possibility of a bridge at some point across the Platte River. I mean, that's obviously quite close to Main Street, so it probably wouldn't end there, but I'm just curious, can that space be used for anything? Because it's actually kind of quite scenic in that spot. Whenever I'd gone running or walking along Riverside, it's a neat little strip, but I just don't know if we can do anything with it. But it sounds like we can, it's not totally off limits.
Small area, I mean, we can look into it. I mean, I gotta think you possibly, you could.
And I guess speaking of the boardwalk, I guess whether we sell or lease or whatever we do with the property, it seems like one of the covenants or restrictions or whatever we'd want to have is that they would allow the boardwalk that is in the master plan.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I remember there are some businesses that are kind of resistant to that, but at least as long as we had it now, we could say that master plan is part of what this building needs to accommodate in the future.
Couple other things to keep in mind, if you do an RFP under the charter, the city charter, you have to, and some of you will remember this, you have to advertise twice in a newspaper, and it requires the affirmative vote, even if you're leasing, of 4 council members to lease the property. And you pass the resolution twice. Pass it once, then it has to sit for 20 days, and then you finally pass the resolution. Jim remembers that.
I do.
So from a timing perspective, you need to keep that in mind.
Diesel.
What?
From Diesel? Is that from Diesel?
No, it's in our charter. No.
They mean the experience.
Yeah. Oh, the experience?
Yeah.
No. What did we sell, Jim? It was a small strip. I can't
You sold a little piece
Small
of
strip,
land.
yeah.
It's a little bit.
Backwater.
That's right, that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then we attempted at one time to swap pieces of property for the ballpark,
That's right.
but that
That's
didn't
right.
pass the citizens. The citizens voted that down.
Right, yeah.
Oh, because that was part property.
Smart property.
We're dating ourselves. Just a while ago.
So there is a process you have to go through to accomplish that.
So my question is, what have we decided here tonight? Are we moving forward? Are we thinking about it? Are we directing Mike to put out RFPs for leasing? And we've had a lot of discussion about everything, but in my mind, I'm not sure exactly what we're...
I think the directive was to direct Mike to come up with an RFP on a leasing arrangement.
Yep.
Keep in mind that even after that, we still have the ability to
Right.
turn anything down. But the current thing is to direct the city manager to come up with an RFP, request for a proposal on a lease arrangement. And probably we're looking at 20 years. Dick, is there a maximum?
I think it
that,
depends on the investment or...
Yeah, it depends upon the use. There's no maximum. It depends upon the use. I think you need to think in terms of
what
how
makes
long
sense.
you want to keep that property tied up also. Because you have to think of it in terms of that's what it's going to be used for.
Well, you have to have the length has to make the renovations worth it too.
Can you
Yeah.
give
Term.
them the option, like shorter or no longer than this? You know what I mean?
Like a player option type
Well,
of
you
deal?
could say if not,
Well,
lease of
Mike's got
not
the
more than or
experience.
not
We'll-
less than.
Exactly, because really, then they could determine.
I mean, maybe the best
their
way would be,
investment they need.
Mike, I'll leave it, you can do this because you've done it before. Maybe the best way is to put something together and then just circulate it amongst people and get comments.
Yeah, I think I'd rather leave it open-ended,
Yeah.
because a lot of this stuff that we're talking about
Right.
isn't even gonna be, you go through this process and you could award someone and you have no terms yet. Really, your terms aren't gonna be developed, you're basically, at this point, even with the RFP point,
Right.
you're at a concept, so to be able to discuss, for them to submit a proposal necessarily at that point, to say these are what the terms are gonna be, my experience is that doesn't really work well for you. My experience is that you're better off having a concept, going through the vetting process of it, and then really I have never negotiated terms as to what an agreement is, whether a lease, purchase, whatever, until the concept has been approved by the city council and where I came from, the DDA board. And we never even talked about, for the most part, we never really even talked about what the terms were gonna be until we came back with a development agreement. There's really two processes. The first part is just going through the conceptual phase and selecting somebody you wanna enter into a development agreement with, and then really nothing's finalized until you have a development agreement. So I would be very broad in the RFP, because I think the more detail, more requirements you put on them, you might steer away a capable candidate, where if you're broader, you can weed people out.
And it's kind of more like, I think, it sounds like you're saying we want to take the approach of not what do we want to see, it's what do we not want to see.
Correct.
So basically kind of give them a boundary to work in, and then rather than saying, here's what we'd like, but you could maybe do this, it's just, here's the fence, do something in there. And
Yeah. I would suggest, though, that if it is a consensus that you don't want to sell, when the RFP goes out, say that it's
Yeah.
only for lease.
We can
Otherwise,
do that.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what most of us wanted to start with, is just not let it go, just, it's, if we can't develop it via lease, then maybe we'd think about selling it later on, but it sounds like there's a lot of options for leasing it that we want to pursue.
There may be people that don't even know it's an option till they
Yeah.
advertise it. You may
Right.
get 10 other proposals of people that didn't even know it was back there.
So here, my question is to Mike, Steve, Dick, and Greg. So, and the council. So I heard Dick suggest that revenue or anything that would come from this, if it went out, that would go to Light and Power. And the reason why I'm questioning it is the roof leaks, and we've talked about it a little bit before, but I guess I want to bring, depending on what I hear tonight, whether to bring this back up at one of our board meetings. I believe that even if we're not, I think the consensus there, we don't want to tear it down, because once it's down, you're not going to be able to build anything back up. So
Right.
even in the meantime, whether this RFP or anything, I think Light and Power needs to look at just some routine maintenance.
Basic
in there.
upkeep.
And that's possible, in my opinion, that's possibly a new roof. And again, do you wait till RFPs are all in? Because maybe they want to put, those are the things that I want guidance from this group, is should Light and Power be looking to get that in their budget to get a new roof on that building? Because there are leaks in that roof, and, the longer it goes, then the more damage you're gonna have and that type of thing.
That's why through this process, Steve needs to be involved, so he can be reporting to the Light and Power Board, because Light and Power ultimately is going to be receiving the revenues from it, so we need to keep them all involved.
I'd recommend fixing the roof. I haven't always followed that advice, and now I'm spending extra money because it isn't going to cost any less to fix it down the road. And at some point, you have structural damage or floor damage, other things that happen to you, so.
But if somebody were to submit a proposal, we were to accept it, they would be responsible for fixing the roof, correct?
Depends on,
Not
well, it depends on the development.
Not necessarily.
I would steer towards an as-is building.
Right. I'm just thinking, 6 months from now.
But I'm thinking, again, I'm thinking of
I know where you're
as
going, yeah.
even as this building, if this comes to fruition 6 months from now or 4 months from now, that's 4 more months or 5 more months of deterioration
Oh, I agree.
to that building.
Oh, I
So
agree.
I think I think Light and Power needs to look at,
Remember, you can always recover it in the rent.
And it could be just a patch, it may not need a new.
right, I don't know what it needs. I just know that I've been in there, I know that
At least.
it leaks.
Yes, we will look into it, budget it.
So speaking of roofs, are there any
Should
other
be,
like?
huh?
Are there any other like limitations that we're aware of now? Like we had, like one I feel is that we should allow the boardwalk, that's the master plan, should that ever come to be developed, that it should be allowed there. We've talked about leasing as kind of being, right now it's a requirement. Someone had mentioned whether they could add a second floor there. Is that something we want to say, no, it needs to be a single story, or do we say it's okay to add a second floor or third floor if they want, or?
I think you want to be open to anything and see what
Okay.
deal somebody brings you and look at it then.
Okay.
Are we set with that? Do we need to make a motion to adjourn? Do we have our consensus?
Council comments.
Council comments? Okay. Mayor?
I'm all set.
For Light and Power, any comments, Tina?
Why'd you look at me?
I'm glad that we're not going to sell it. That's the consensus so far. Everybody's on board with that. When I read this, I was horrified thinking that, I didn't want to lose our jewel. This is really a beautiful piece. The building is ugly. Jim Hall and I, back in the day, he'd be on the pontoon boat and he'd point at that building and shake his head, and it's an eyesore. It is an eyesore. Even though we painted it, it's still an ugly building. If whoever was able to go in there and throw some money at it, and they came back and they said, okay, we'll be here for 20 years, but after 20 years, you better give me the option to sell, to let me buy it. But I'll put a 2-story on there. Honestly, you guys, I can't see that building being anything but ugly without a lot of money thrown at it, to be honest with you. And that would be beautiful to look at if it was nice when we're across the river at the concerts. So that's how I feel. So if aesthetically, could we have the walk come around like what you said and make it beautiful? I'm all for that. I really don't want to sell it. So that's how I feel. Thank you.
I like the idea of renting the building out. My construction background tells me that's a wonderful idea. It's a wonderful thing to do. The building does need some help, and it would be nice to have another viable business here regardless of what it is. Parking's always going to be a problem in this town, but it is what it is, and I suggest that we have Mike just get going and make it all work out. I've been through where Mike came from, and I can tell you this, I've seen what Mike's capable of doing, and it is pretty spectacular, so. That's it.
I guess I have a question. Are there any other city properties like this that might be useful to somebody that they aren't aware of it? That maybe we could do the similar thing where you could put out an RFP and say, hey, the city has this property, anybody want to develop something on it?
I'm not aware of any. At least along the riverfront. I mean, we own a number of properties, but
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
eventually where the generators are, that'll become an
Yeah, I
issue.
mean, that's one that we've talked about, but like when some folks came about talk about the chamber building, that's another one that,
yeah, I did forget about that. Yeah, the fairgrounds.
Fairgrounds.
yeah, there's a good one.
Floodplain.
Floodplain issue.
Yeah, well, the chamber building was the one that we were approached about before that, I don't know what the long-term plan is for that whole building, but it's just a thought. Yeah, and I guess as far as parking goes, keep working at it.
That's all you can do.
And, it's a good problem to have, because if you have parking problems, then that means the parking spots are full. And, yeah, that's it.
Okay. My comment for low line power, 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody go down to the gas station and buy a lotto ticket tonight for $175 million. And we can make a lot of things happen. Other than that, that's all I got to say.
Good idea.
Talk about a plan.
Yeah.
I win that, I'm leaving. I'm not, you won't even know I'm gone.
Motion to adjourn? At 7:25.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes. Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn for light and power.
I'll second.
I would entertain a motion.
At what time?
I'll second. You'll second.
Thank you.
7:26.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Excited, you can have the motion and the second.